All right, there's so many self-inflicted crises that are taking place here in our nation's capital as a result of the policies of the Biden administration. Well, I kind of wonder if that's part of the strategy, maybe to cause us to forget or take our eyes off of other things. For instance, what's happening at the southern border. I mean, that's a crisis. In fact, this is what Congressman Steve Scalise, the House Majority Leader, had to say today.
They think if they just ignore this problem, mislead the public about this problem, that it'll go away. It's not going away. It's only getting worse.
In fact, even Democratic cities that are feeling the pinch as a result of governors like the governor of Texas and Florida that have been transporting those who have come into the state into these blue cities, they're now squealing and complaining. Well, joining me now to discuss this and more is Oklahoma Senator James Lankford. He serves on 4 Senate committees, including the Senate Committee on Homeland Security. Senator Lankford, welcome back to the program.
Good to see you again, Tony.
So, James, Title 42 ended just last Thursday night. Has what we've been seeing matched your expectations?
It has been. Let me tell you why on it. The days leading up to the end of Title 42, we were seeing more than 10,000 people a day illegally crossing our border. And just to give you a context, during the Obama administration, Jay Johnson said when 1,000 people a day illegally cross our border, it's a really bad day. So we've seen a giant number. That number has increased dramatically over the last several weeks to now over 10,000. Now, since Title 42 has ended, the Biden administration is trying to put some new things in place to be able to sub it, but we're still seeing 4,000 to 5,000 people a day illegally crossing the border.
But they're celebrating that.
That's the same as the time leading up to Title 42.
But they're celebrating that. Oh, yeah, the numbers have dropped. I mean, that's kind of like what they did on gas. You know, we're paying $2 a gallon or less when Donald Trump was president. Then it went up to like $3.50, almost $4. And when it dropped back down to $3.50, they were celebrating. See, we've brought down the price of gas.
It's exactly what they've done. It goes up to 10 or 11,000. Then when it goes back down to 4 or 5,000, they're like, look, it went in half. It hasn't gone in half from what it has been historically. We're still at historic norm, historic highs. And the painful part is we're at historic highs of the people crossing the border illegally, but we're at historic lows of people actually being deported. In fact, just again, put it in context, if you take the 3 years of the Biden administration, they've deported fewer people in 3 years than President Obama did even in 1 year. So they're literally not deporting people, but they have a record number of people illegally crossing the border.
You know, when we talk about it on here, it's not just those that are coming here to find economic opportunity. I don't fault them for wanting to come to America. I want to encourage them to come in the legal way. But that's not the big concern. The big concern is that this is emboldening the cartels and it's increasing the drug problem in the United States.
Yeah, dramatically. Tony, day after day, I talk to the Border Patrol. They'll tell me when they get a flood of people coming across the border illegally, they can't go get to the people that are coming in the camouflage and backpacks that are actually carrying the drugs because they're managing the migrants that are coming across that may or may not want to work or just visit with family, whatever it may be. Just yesterday, 1,500 people crossed our border illegally that the Border Patrol saw them, but they couldn't get to them. They have no idea who they are, what they were carrying, what they were doing. That's day after day after day. We'll have 1,500 to 2,000 that are crossing they literally can't get to because they're handling so many migrants that are coming across the border. And I'm with you. People that come legally, I don't have a problem with. I have a big problem with people that are being facilitated by the cartels and that are being used by the cartels and that we have no idea what their background is. Literally, these folks that are crossing the border, we do a terror watch list check on them, but we don't know anything about their criminal history, the countries they're coming from. We have no idea on those individuals. We don't know if they're fleeing poverty or fleeing justice, but they're just being released into the country day after day.
I want to switch gears. This is National Police Week. In fact, I had dinner last night with my sheriff from Louisiana that was up here in Washington. You recently introduced the Back the Blue Act, which would increase penalties for criminals who target law enforcement officers. Also, the Senate today voting to oppose a measure from the District of Columbia, which is in line with what most of these liberal cities are doing, handcuffing law enforcement. Talk about that. Talk about your measure and the stand that we need to take to protect law enforcement so that they can protect us.
Yeah, let me just say again what I say so often. Thank you to all the law enforcement that are out there that literally every day put on a uniform and a badge, and they give their family a hug, and their family says, be safe out there, and they mean it. And they go out and literally put their life on the line to be able to protect their fellow citizens every single day. So we just can't say thank you enough. I have family members that are in law enforcement. I've seen the real consequence of their life and of their decisions and how hard their job is to be able to go serve and protect every single day. So for weeks like this with Police Week, it's a reminder again how grateful we are. But as they go through those names, those are literally law enforcement folks that laid down their life for their fellow Americans. So for these liberal cities that they're constantly trying to find ways to defund the police or limit the police or isolate the police or literally treat the police with contempt while they try to release criminals and say they need to be understood. I think we need to understand what's happening in law enforcement and to be able to hold people to account that actually break the law. That's a better system that's out there. So we're grateful for this. The Back the Blue Act that I have, that's very straightforward. That is, if you are targeting police officers, you need to be held to account in a higher level of consequence for that. This is similar to what we're doing, the hate crimes legislation that's out there to say, if you're committing a hate crime, you're held to a higher account for your punishment for it. But that's not true if you target law enforcement. If you're targeting law enforcement, they need to be held to a higher account. Literally, the people that are enforcing the law are not treated with the same respect that others are. So I want to be able to treat them with that level of respect as well.
Yeah, and I think we've got to call it out, because when you look at cities like the District of Columbia, again, that's trying to tie the hands of law enforcement behind their back, we're seeing skyrocketing rates of crime here in the city. This is 20 years ago when I first came to Washington, it was actually a pretty decent city, but it's becoming dangerous. I mean, we're seeing members of Congress, their staff being attacked here in the city. It's becoming a rough city.
Yeah, it's a painful place. We want America and the rest of the world to be able to come, enjoy the museums, be able to be a participant in their own republic, to be able to visit with people face to face. We want to continue to encourage that. But if people are afraid to be able to travel to the city, we need to hold them to account. And we need to remind the mayor here and the leadership here of the city council that this is still the federal District of Columbia. As we've overruled some of their changes that they've already done by actions, we actually took another vote today to be able to say you can't just dismiss police and put restrictions on police and to be able to release our criminals. And that's really what they're trying to do. So we need to be able to hold them to account because this is America's capital.
Yeah. Senator James Lankford, always great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us today. Appreciate you fighting for faith, family, and freedom on Capitol Hill.
Glad to do it, Tony. Good to see you again.